Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Washington Township Board of Education special meeting this evening. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, public notice of this meeting has been given by the Board Secretary in the following manner: posting written notices on the official bulletin board at the Eileen Abbott Central Administration Building, mailing written notice to the South Jersey Times and Courier Post, and filing written notice with the Clerk of the Township of Washington on April 4th, 2022. This time, we please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Clancy?
Here.
Ms. DeMayo? Dr. Ellis?
Here.
Mrs. Gallinaro?
Here.
Ms. Halpin? Ms. Pollard?
Here.
Ms. Kazemple? Mr. Genovi?
Here. At this time, can I get a motion to open the meeting to the public?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Before we go into this, we will only be having one closed session this evening, and the reason for that is we're going to give the public an opportunity to discuss issues that you're concerned about prior to our closed session. After closed session, we're only coming back. There are no other items on the agenda this evening. We're only coming back so that we can officially close the meeting, so there will be no public participation. Is that understood? So at this point, as you heard, we've already had a motion to open. If you would kindly fill out one of the yellow cards and pass it down here, we'll be calling you up and giving you an opportunity to speak to the board about your concerns for a 5-minute period. So do we have any yellow cards this evening? You can bring it straight up. Anyone else, if you would just kindly bring it to the end of the table, please.
I'd like to make a motion. Can we extend the 5-minute rule?
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Seeing none? Did I hear a second? Seeing none, motion denied. Mary, if you'd like to come up, you're the only card so far.
Well, I'm going to hand you guys out something. Maybe you can take it and pass it down. Good evening. I'm Mary Bem, 578 Dew Court. I'm glad to see the select few that are here this evening, and hopefully to make right what others, I believe, have made a mockery of the board and the very board leader, Julie Kazemple. Julie has demonstrated an utter lack of disrespect of the school board, a single school board member, and the residents that she was voted to represent, even the so-called red hats. The numerous others, too. It is well known that Danielle Halpern asked Julie to resign after the last BOE meeting on April 22nd. Julie told her no. So Danielle herself stepped down. It's a shame we lose Danielle, and yet the corrupt, unethical Julie remains on the school board. I was disgusted by the supposed false email that Julie wrote to Ron. I read where she outlined how she needs certain people to run for the board so they will support her choice for the superintendent. I understand the meeting tonight is to review and discuss the steps, or the next steps. Let me make myself clear. I do not know Shaniqua, whom Julie handpicked for our next superintendent back in July, if not long before that. She may even be very well qualified, and there are surely numerous other qualified candidates that have submitted resumes. I feel because of Julie and her underhandedness behind the backs of the board on which she sits and her brokering deals has tainted Shaniqua's opportunity to be even considered. Additionally, Shaniqua only 6 months ago sat here with this very board, and I think none of you sitting there could make a fair judgment on that decision. Frankly, I believe Julie should resign, and do so immediately. I also feel that it is your responsibility as a board to ask her to step down. It wasn't that long ago that Julie bullied another school board member into stepping down for simply sharing and not creating a Facebook post. Let's not forget her bullying and calling out Connie Baker at the meeting on the 22nd. It was unjust, unfounded, and a defamation of character. Allowing Julie to continue on this board makes you all complicit in her behavior. You're likely surprised to know that Julie reached out to me via an email after I opened her personal BOE emails, her personal and her BOE emails, following the March 22nd meeting. She wanted to explain how she was taken out of context. However, once you put something in writing, you can't go back. She called a township resident, Ron, a liar at the recorded meeting, and yet again, that is a defamation of character. Julie she has a way of trying to deflect her wrongdoings onto others when she is called out and actually guilty herself. This was seen by the way she responded and she acted on the recorded meeting, and it was an outshow, if you ask me, of her guiltiness. I have a copy of the Code of Ethics that the school board members must follow. I trust that each of you are aware of the Code of Ethics you are expected to follow. However, just in case, that's what I provided for you. In addition, I have one more request. As you are now faced with choosing a replacement for Danielle, I don't see how you could allow Julie to be a part of that decision, knowing how biased and judgmental she is. Therefore, I ask you to make this decision without her input, especially if she doesn't step down. And in closing tonight, I'm going on record and I'm asking Julie Kazempel to resign immediately. And one other thing, I know after we're all speaking, you said you're going to go into closed session. I thought this was procedural, so you're not talking about actual applications and candidates. So you're going to explain to us the procedure before you go into your closed session?
We will talk about the procedure in closed session.
But I
We
think
can't-
procedure is, that should be that should be open to the public, the procedure on how you're going to go forward with it, so that it technically, by Code of Ethics, that is, procedure should be discussed openly, not in a closed session.
Is that true?
Well, my point is that there's still no back and forth during the public comment.
Well, that's fine not to go back and forth, but if it is procedural, I hope that you don't go to closed session. If you want to go to closed session and review applications and resumes, that, of course, is closed session. But procedural, by looking at the Code of Ethics, that is something that should be open to the public. So just to let you know.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lucarini?
Yeah, Ron Lucarini, A3 Bryant Road. Just a couple things. I don't really care about Mrs. Kozempel calling me a liar or any of that. You know, names really don't matter in this situation. But she apologized soon after that, and she apologized for the wrong thing. She apologized for her behavior and, you know, hitting the gavel like a mad woman and whatever. But she really should have been apologizing for basically bastardizing the superintendent's search, you know, long before. And the one thing you did not mention was that Mrs., and I didn't even realize it till the other day, that Shaniqua or Mrs. Carvalho was on the board at the time she was making her plotting and planning and her mastermind scheme to get Mrs. Carvalho as the superintendent. I didn't even realize that. I thought she had been off the board. I think the date of that email was July 24th, 21, or July 17th, something like that. But I just think at this point, the integrity of the system, and you know, it's not a personal thing against Mrs. Kozempel, even though it may come across that, because she says I'm sending her 7 to 8 emails a day, but those 7 to 8 emails go to a lot of people, and she has the right to say, you know, don't send me anymore if they don't involve Board of Education stuff, but she's never done that. So, well, she did it once, and then recanted, and wanted it back. So I said, okay, I'll send it to you. But here's the deal. I just think at this point, I've been arguing this kind of thing with this political hiring and brother-in-law and what I call the white man's affirmative action system, where, it's who you know. And for a Board of Education that cares so much about equity and fairness, I don't know how you don't recognize institutionalized discrimination as one of the main factors in causing inequity. Okay, it fascinates me that they're more worried about whether a teacher says hello boys and girls and not not hello friends, but yet they don't care who the superintendent is as long as they're being hired by one of their brother-in-law friends in the Democrat Party. And it's been the same way when the Republicans were in there as well. So it is, for me at this point, and I'm speaking only for myself, I just think the superintendent search needs a breath. Take a breath, and I think you need to suspend that search. Get yourself an interim, somebody of high quality, of the utmost integrity, no questions, no ties to either party. Put them in there as an interim, and do a nationwide search. This is a big district. I noticed I got the Courier Post one Sunday, and the ad was in the Courier Post. I mean, I think an ad for a district like this, we should be looking at the New York Times, something like that to try to attract, higher quality candidate. Not that Shaniqua was not a high quality candidate. I'm not saying that. I just think the whole thing's been marred. In fact, if I were the Board of Education at this point, I don't know if the public can trust anything, I would opt to have like a citizen search committee or something like that, made up of people who are of high quality and aren't politically connected to either party. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. You can bring that straight up.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Do you want me to introduce you or you introduce yourself?
Either's fine. Staff member.
Mr. Lopez, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mark Lopez. I am a teacher, social justice club advisor, love and gender expression club advisor, anti-bullying committee member, and association representative at Orchard Valley Middle School. My parents, brother, brother-in-law, and numerous friends have homes right here in Washington Township. I completed my second year of teaching in Township this past February. After serving 11 and a half years in 3 previous school districts, I can honestly state that serving the Washington Township Public Schools and the Washington Township Education Association has been the best experience of my career, and that I hope to make Township my final career home. I searched to find a quote that would best depict how my employer and association make me feel, and I came across a quote by American author and pastor John C. Maxwell that states, "Leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others." It is because of the great leadership in this district and association that I feel empowered to be a strong instructor and advocate for the children and staff here. Township, like any other community, is comprised of human beings. Human beings are not perfect and do make mistakes. Good human beings are ones that have good intentions and are ones that forgive others who make mistakes that were made with good intentions. Township has a lot of good human beings in leadership positions and throughout the district, which of course translates into a great school system for the staff and the children. What compelled me to come to this board meeting is that I've been observing and becoming increasingly concerned about the amount of negativity, ingratitude, and falsehoods being shared at board meetings, and I wish to share some positivity, gratitude, and truth about Township schools. Prior to teaching, I worked for 11 years in retail pharmacy as a technician. I provided excellent customer service in 99% of the situations, but as a human, I made some mistakes. My manager knew that I was an excellent employee for the silent majority when she would hear the complaints of the vocal minority. People are more likely to take the time and energy to complain about the poor customer service than they are to compliment good customer service. Thank you to the democratically elected board members selected by the majority of the town's voters for all that they are doing for our school staff and children. As unpaid volunteers, you all take time and energy from your own work, home, family, and friends to serve as community input representatives for the schools. Not only do you all have the board member training and the 2 monthly meetings to attend, but you also all serve on additional board committees and correspond with each other on your own time outside of these meetings. The staff and children of our district need your continued cooperative and collaborative leadership. American pastor and civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated that a genuine leader is not a searcher of consensus, but is a molder of consensus. I wish to thank Mr. Bollendorf for his service as a true educational leader who worked with all of his stakeholders to achieve an exemplary school system for staff and children. It is my hope that upon Mr. Bollendorf's departure, that our staff and children have a vested educational leader of Mr. Bollendorf's caliber to continue his and the board's vision for the district on day one. I thank you for your time.
I need to say,
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Lopez is an amazing educator. My children do not go to that school personally, but I've heard so many good things about him. I've had the privilege of being able to work with him before, and he truly is exactly what all students need in Washington Township. So thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board this evening? Okay. You know what, you can dispense with that. Just hand it over there and you can go right to the platform, introduce yourself and make your comments.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Monty. My kids go to Birches, and I just had a couple comments. One, when this notice was issued, it was issued as a sunshine notice, which is a public meeting, if I'm not mistaken. That's how it reads. That's the notice that was sent out. So I don't understand why it would be closed, because what was put out to the parents was that this meeting was to discuss the hiring of the superintendent and any other official concerns the parents had about anything going on in the district. So if it's been issued as an open meeting, I'm just kind of curious to, how it becomes then closed meeting. And, my second question is, Julie's behavior, she has a pattern of this behavior, and no one ever does anything or says anything to her. It's not just one incident. She hasn't flipped out like that just one time. It's been multiple times. And yet, she's the board president. She's supposed to represent our school. And nobody says anything. Nobody does anything. And she can just do what she wants, call parents names, make statements like the red hats. It's not right. It's not fair. And, the parents aren't happy. I mean, I can speak for myself, but, the parents of this district are not happy at all. So, I guess my only question at this point would be, about the sunshine notice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Basically, as per the sunshine notice, this meeting was legally advertised, and we followed the rules for having a special meeting. So I guess to answer your question is that we followed the proper procedure for having this meeting.
Hey, you want me to respond?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the real question that you have is, why is the board going to go into executive session to talk about, again, the superintendent search? And there was questions before everyone arrived about that same issue. In my opinion, and I was asked to be here as the attorney for the board. I usually don't come to special meetings because of needing my advice, my possible advice regarding the questions of the superintendent search. Yes, we're going to be talking about process, but there are candidates who have applied. I'm not going to tell you who those candidates are. And depending upon what is decided by the board in executive session as to where we go with that superintendent search is going to affect those candidates. I believe that particular issue is intertwined with the people who are who have already applied for that. I don't believe there's going to be a discussion about candidate A over candidate B. I realize that, but I think the fact that people have applied and that their applications and those names may be coming up in executive session, I believe it's a proper executive session topic. And that's why when we're done with the public session, the board will go into executive session. There will be some discussion, and I will give my opinions, my attorney advice about certain things that I think is going to happen. The board's going to actually have that discussion, and people may be talked about. So that's why it's my opinion that they can go into executive session. It's a proper reason to go.
Thanks, Joe. Can you hold on for one second, Ginny? I'm going to poll the board for something. I will come back to you and allow you to address the board. Given the fact we have people here who are interested in the qualifications and the selection of our superintendent, I'm going to ask the board if I can extend the public portion for the purpose of addressing the board as to what qualifications you feel that we should be looking for in a new superintendent. So with that, I'd like to poll the board. How many board members? And that will be limited to 3 minutes because we do have a lot of work to do this evening. So will the board allow me to extend the public portion of the meeting for the purpose of hearing what the community would like to see in a superintendent?
I have a comment.
Yes?
Part of my understanding
Well,
of,
Connie, before you make the comment, I'm putting a motion to the board. Can we act on that motion, then I'll address your comment, please?
can I discuss,
You're
is
gonna
there
need
any
a-
discussion
you're
on
gonna
the
need a
motion?
second. Hold on, you're going to need a second for that motion. There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
So we have a motion
Now-
and a second.
Now, discussion about that particular motion.
Discussion
We'll
about the
extend
motion.
extend the public comment.
Okay,
For
my feeling,
purpose of discussing the superintendent's qualifications and qualities.
I certainly don't have opposed to anybody coming up and talking about the superintendent. However, we are going to be discussing the process. And that was certainly one of my questions to Mr. Bentley to be transparent, why the process cannot be in public. Now, when you're talking about the public coming up and talking about their thoughts about the superintendent, I would hope that part of our discussion about the process, that we will be talking collectively and making a decision on whether or not maybe we want to get an outside agency to assist us. And if you look at some of the places like Moorestown and Ocean City, who have just recently been involved in superintendent search, they have a very comprehensive survey out to parents. I wouldn't want this to be the time that we got information on the superintendent and we did it. I want to see more of a comprehensive thing. People here maybe haven't had a chance to think about that. It sounds good on the surface, but I want to see something more comprehensive. I have no problem. I could stay here till midnight, but I just want to get that out there that we need to do more than just what's going on today.
Thank you. We had a motion that was approved. If you would like to come up and address the board as what qualifications.
Well, Ray, you had a motion, you had a second, you need discussion, then you need to have a vote on that
All right.
motion.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm not sure we're ready for it, but.
All in favor of extending the meeting for the purpose that was explained, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the motion carried. I guess you're to start. Come on up, Peg.
Good evening. Ginny Murphy, 53 Gilman Parkway. It's good to see many of you. I haven't seen a lot of you guys in a long time. I've enjoyed some of my time off. I will tell you, for those that I didn't work with, I look forward to getting to know you. Mr. Bentley, I just have a couple questions about, it's like the NBA All-Star game back here. You got all the retired board members sitting there. We're all like grabbing our seat on the issue of process. I came out here tonight to hear about the superintendent search. The notice said to discuss the process of the superintendent selection or search, right? I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that's what it said. So to me, I personally, it's my opinion that process is something that should be discussed in public session. And at this point, where we find ourselves as a district, if there is the ability to do the process in public, you want to err on the side of doing it in public. Now, I get what you're saying. It could lead to people saying things about candidates. Well, that's why you're here. That's when you say we can have no discussion about the candidates, and they can be directed in that way. But if we're going to talk about, suspending the search, hiring an interim superintendent, I don't even know what you guys are going to talk about, but if those things are all stuff the public should be able to listen to, and to have public comment before you have such input, I think it's hard. Like, I'm sitting like, anybody want to fill out a card? What are we talking about? We haven't heard anything yet. So, I mean, look, I have the utmost respect. I spent 10 years where you guys are sitting. And you guys that are here tonight in this room have a tough job sitting here based on what happened at the last meeting, and most of you weren't even involved in it. So I get it. I support you guys. But be transparent. So Mr. Bentley, if you could tell your board that they can have this meeting in public and shut down anything that doesn't belong, and then if you have to go out and do that, do it the other way. Don't go in, and then if they start talking about public things, say, oh, you can't talk about it. How about we talk about what we can talk about and go in executive for the stuff that you can't? That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Can I have a motion to close the public participation?
So moved.
I have a motion and seconded. Roll call on that.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallinaro?
Yes.
Ms. Pollard?
Yes.
Mr. Denuvi?
Yes.
After speaking with Mr. Bentley, he feels that if the board so chooses, we could have the public participation or the public involved in listening to what we discuss for the process. So do I have any board member who objects to that?
No.
Okay. All right then, at this particular time, we are going to continue with the meeting. And we are looking to discuss the process that will be used to select our new superintendent.
And again, just want to remind the board members, if there are any questions regarding my legal advice that you want to address outside of the public, we can take a break. We can go in executive session. I can give you that legal advice because I do believe that should be in executive session. And also remind the board members that in this discussion, we are not talking about any particular candidate who has applied or any prospective candidate or anything else. You can't talk about any kind of personalities involved in your discussion. You're just talking about what you're going to do moving forward regarding picking the next superintendent.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Ray, could we all just share our own thoughts and opinions for discussion, or is there a set way that we're supposed to do this?
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Okay, all
This
right.
way the board gets to hear how we feel about it, and then we can continue our dialogue back and forth because we're going to have to select the process and come up with a process that will be used from this point on. So would you like to
Since
start?
I volunteered it, I'm probably
Would you
going to
like
be
to start?
the one who's going to. All right, well, so I definitely, I know that the board did approve the initial timeline, but to my knowledge, and I could be completely wrong about this, that wasn't posted on the school website and neither was the job description. I could be wrong, but when I looked, I didn't see it. So one of the things I think we need to do, because I do think we need to change this. I do. I think that we have to work on the whole idea of transparency. We can't say that we're going to and then have issues unfold which question that. So one of the things that I thought maybe we just start right off the bat, once we figure out our timeline, that goes up, and so does the, job description. What was said before about asking opinions of the public, there needs to be, I know there's a whole lot of people watching at home. There are several really good surveys. The Philadelphia School District had one. They're simple. They compile a lot of really valuable information just in one place. So I was thinking that after we do that, this week we put out what we decide to do. Next week, if we could put out a survey, and like I said, they're very simple, and we could use that to develop interview questions with the candidates that we have. Because I have a couple concerns. One's from a teacher perspective, so bear with me. One of them is we have, I would like more time to look at the resumes. I was under the impression we would get to take them and have more time, not realizing the legal implications of that. So I think that I would like more time to take a look and go through them and make sure we're all on the same page. I felt like we were kind of trying our hardest to get things into piles, but I want to examine them a little more thoroughly. But I think that we could use a survey once we have that information to guide us into what our first string and second string of interviews would look like. Because we do have, from what I could see, we have a lot of good candidates. I'm afraid if we push it off too far, we're going to lose potential candidates that we could have really considered. I saw some that I would really be interested in interviewing, and as this is my first run around with this, I think it's important. But I think we need to use a survey to draft questions because we don't necessarily know what everyone else's opinions are about the order of importance that they value certain things and what they think needs to be improved upon. Once we close the survey, we could do first round of interviews, second round of interviews. I think it's important to have, we don't have to stick with that original timeline. I don't see that we could at this point. But I do think it's important to have a superintendent there for the beginning of the school year because as a staff member, when our school was in flux through no fault of anyone's, it was just an emergency situation, it was really hard for the students and the staff and the families to adjust from one, an interim to somebody brand new. It kind of leaves everybody in a state of flux, which isn't good for the staff at the schools. So I would like to see something permanent by September. But I think we need to adjust within enough time so that we can talk about things and survey the public and be more transparent. So that's just my thought on it.
Go just right
We're
down.
going right around the table.
Okay, I like to try to keep this simple. I brought up, as my fellow board members know, when we had the meeting, when this process started, basically, we're just giving information of what has been done in the past. I brought up at the time, what about school boards? And I was told, that's going to cost too much money, $9,000. Okay, at this point now, at this juncture, where we are now, my feeling is that we need to take a pause. I can speak for myself, and as I look around at the others here, I was never in a superintendent search before. Neither was anybody else sitting up on this board. I am not going to pretend that I have the know-how how to do this process. So what I'm proposing to my fellow board members, take a pause. Take a pause. Explore different executive searches. That could include the New Jersey school boards. It could include, it's called, let me see, I wrote it down here. Hold on. You could go on Ocean City website. You can see what they put down for their search. They're in the middle of the search now. Basically, they're using the Strategic Educational Advantage. It's called SEA. Morristown used an Illinois-based association, Hazard Young Associates. So there are executive searches out there that I believe that we really need to look at to assist us to assist us how to go about doing surveys for the community, doing town halls, doing all kinds of, small groups. That we need to understand what our community is looking for in a superintendent. What we did 7 years ago, it's not the same today. So we really need to look with fresh eyes, and I can say for myself, I'm not going to pretend I know what to do, so especially in a situation where we're hiring the most important person in this district and our most important responsibility as a board. The second thing I want to say, that maybe there might be a possibility, depending on working with an outside agency, that we may have to have an interim. I don't want to put a timeline on anything. I want to make sure we do it right. And also, we need to consider, we have an open seat on the board, that person, whoever it may be, is going to be involved in this process. So I go back to, we need to take a pause. We need to explore an agency that does this, that assists boards. I know nothing about it. And we need to consider the fact that we may have to go out for an interim, but we won't know that until we engage in some conversations with some type of agency that can assist us. Please go on the websites of Morristown and Ocean City and look at the website in the Philadelphia School Board and see the kinds of things that they put into the process. And it was the help of having outside people that know what they're doing about this process that helped them to move along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank. I'm basically going to be saying a lot of what Connie said, so I'll just be short. I think we should pause because the fact we have one less board member and we need to get in-house things taken together first, and then get maybe an impartial agency, like she said, who can assist us, what the process is, because we don't have a process in place, and we need to know what that is, to, survey the parents, collect the data, form the questions, and, there shouldn't be a timeline, and I agree with Connie. We shouldn't rush the process. It's a very important position that we need to fill, especially Joe Bollendorf. He's a very good superintendent, and we need to have someone of his caliber. And I think you all can agree with that. So I don't think we should, rush that process. And again, just take a pause and do what we need to do in-house and get things on the right track.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I do believe we need to pivot. I think having said that, and there's a lot of smart people in this room and on this board, and we can figure this out. To Jenny's point, it was my recommendation that we went to executive session before we opened up to the public, so we'd have something to share. Having said that, to me, it's I don't want to oversimplify this, but I think there's two fundamental things we could do. To Connie's point, we can definitely look at a external consultant group, have them kind of come in and run this entire process for us. Obviously, there's some pros and cons to either of these solutions. I mean, one would be the cost associated with that. To your point, do we consider, is that something we wouldn't consider for such an important search like this? Probably not. But that would be option, I guess, A. The other option for me is we did vote on a process and a timeline and procedure, and to that point we need to pivot. I don't think we're doing any interviews within the next couple of weeks. Having said that, I did get a chance to come in last week and I reviewed the 36 applicants, and I did identify some, to Kathy's point, that I appreciated and I thought would make very viable candidates and superintendents. So if that's the route that we wanted to take, I think there's enough smart people on this board to figure out how we, move this process forward. Again, I've been part of many, executive searches, deans, presidents, and, we could figure this out. Again, we don't have to figure it out within the next week or two, but there is a path to having this be the route that we take as well. What I was hoping we would get out of today was being able to talk to my fellow board members and come up with a consensus as to if we go with option A or option B. At the end of the day, we need to make sure we make the right hire, and that's the most important thing. But I want to throw out all the different variables and all the, hear the different opinions and approaches that we could take regarding this matter. What I can agree on is that, at this time, given the state of circumstances, we do need to pivot, take a deep breath, and then make a very thoughtful decision as to how we move forward. Having said that, I'm open to option A or B because I know we could figure it out. I do believe that in any search like this, I'm sure the external consulting group would, open up multiple platforms and forums for the public to express their opinion and their concerns. However, if we went to the other route and did option B, we as a board could also develop a process that would allow for that as well. In my opinion, I think we should also open this up to staff and administration within the district as well. So they should have a voice as well in this whole process. So again, happy to continue these discussions. At the end of the day, I do agree with Kathy, though I would like to have someone in place by the start of the new school year. Now, again, that gives us the entire summer to do this. I think if we went with option A or B, that's a timeline that I think we could, we could fulfill. So I'll pause here and pass the link.
Yeah. All right. I agree with pausing and making sure that we do this right, whether it be hiring somebody to assist, making sure that the parents and residents have surveys to fill out. What we decide on as a board, hopefully we'll come to a consensus with how we want to do this, but I think we need somebody that's not biased. We do have some really good candidates, but I just think it's too rushed. And I do think that we need to fill the empty board seat first before we do anything else. That's my opinion.
Thank you. So what I've heard and what I wrote down as a potential starting point would be the number one, since New Jersey School Boards is the direct body that we get our information from, and we may also want to take a look at Strauss Esme to see if they can offer anything since they're our policy person. So I'm not going to put a timeline down. I'm just going to put things that we discussed and what we can possibly move forward, and then we'll discuss them if you want to take any out or add more. So the number one is to contact both New Jersey School Boards and Strauss Esme for additional information. Obviously, we need to survey the parents. Everyone seems to agree with that, and also the staff. That was very important that we do that. So we have to come up with some type of viable survey that will provide us with the information that would be helpful to us as we move forward. And I do believe that school boards could do that, or we can contact a neighboring school district that has gone through this search and ask them, what procedures they used, maybe even some of the questions that they used, and so forth. Just a reminder that was already in what we were discussing before is that no matter what we do moving forward, the final two candidates will be interviewed in public during the board meeting where we will select the final candidate. So I think we should keep that in the process. We should move forward with the vacancy first. I think it's important to have someone new come on the board and maybe offer some additional information that will be fruitful to our search. And I think what we need to do also is to look at either school boards or other districts that have been mentioned, that have gone through a superintendent search. I know I believe I have some very good questions about what to ask a superintendent, because I did spend 38 years in education and I was on a superintendent search committee but it was so long ago, I probably forgot everything, Connie, but I did do that. You said no one has gone through the process, but I have gone through that process. But anyway, I do believe that it's important that we get some professional help in developing questions that we should pose to get the information that would be necessary to run a district this size. Because we have to look at that. We have to look at the applicants, where they're coming from, and the size district that they work for. Washington Township is a totally different picture. We have, well, we are, the largest district, and we have, over 500 staff members and so forth. So I really believe that, we need to do what is best for the students. That's what we all said. We all said as board members, we're here for the children. And the leader of the children has to be the type of leader that moves us forward. I'm not saying anything that we're not moving forward, because we are moving forward, but you have to move forward because education changes about every 3 months. New things, new procedures, new ideas, and we have to constantly change to make sure that when our students graduate, they're ready for college and they're ready for the world. So with that, I'll go over them again. Look into New Jersey school boards coming and helping us develop the process and the criteria for the search. Develop a staff and parent survey that will go out. Develop a timeline. And if need be, as mentioned, if we have to hire an interim to do this, then we hire an interim. The only thing I would mention is that if we can make the timeline, even if we have an interim, such that the new superintendent can be hired at least 1 month prior to the opening of school. I think it's important that that person get to meet with the people who have been working on the opening, because that transition is extremely important. And I think the superintendent should be able to have at least a month to review what has occurred and what needs to be done for a successful and safe opening of schools. And I believe that's pretty much what we said. If there's anything that anyone wants to add to that or delete from that, please let me know. Connie, you have a question?
I do. That's a good summary, but I want to, one time, okay. That's a good summary. I'd like to talk Brian's point of A and B. Why I'm leaning towards A, and A is getting an agency involved. School board's great. I know I brought them up before, but I didn't realize there were other people out there, other executive searches out there. And here's why we need to look at them, because they're impartial. No bias. Okay? That, I think right now, based on where we are, we need the impartiality. Also, to call up Ocean City and ask them how they did it or how Moorestown did it, that doesn't fly with me, because Washington Township is going to have their own needs based on the community and the stakeholders, the teachers, the staff. We need to craft what we're looking for based on the input that we get from our community and other stakeholders. So where I'm coming from is that we pause, we get somebody to come in and talk to us, and those surveys and all that stuff comes after. Nothing is going to be done until we have a conversation, or we go along with a search committee that gives us advice what is best for this district and how they're going to get the data from the district to help us look at a candidate. Quite frankly, Joe Bollendorf is retiring June 30th. I'd like to have a superintendent here July 1st. But I am not going to give a deadline. I'm not going to work towards that deadline. I'm going to work towards getting the best superintendent here. And I think when we're finished, because we were talking about going into executive, maybe Mr. Bentley can answer this, that typically when you have discussions like this in public, the public have an opportunity to come up. So are we able to do another public session when we're finished?
There's no need for closed session right now.
No, the question is whether
Oh.
or not to open up the meeting for another public session meeting.
Right, for the people here, if they have any questions based on what we're
Again,
talking
right,
about.
Because it's a special meeting, so my understanding is there was one public comment section. If the majority of the board wants to have another public comment session, that's up to you. Somebody can make a motion, somebody second, have a discussion, and you take a vote. I know there's a hard deadline for some people here, and we need to make some decisions, but it's up to the board to decide whether you want to have another public comment section. You had your one, which is what you normally do in the specials, in a special meeting.
I'd like to make
So my answer is
I'd like to
you-
make a
you-
motion. I'd like to make a motion that we have another public session. I'm interested in hearing if any thoughts from the public. They came out here tonight, and so I make a motion.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
I second it.
We have a second. All in favor of,
Any discussion about that
any
motion?
discussion?
But before we open up, I just want to kind of clarify on a couple of things. It sounds like the New Jersey Boards Association could almost be like a combination of option A and option B that I kind of talked about a little bit. I guess my one question is, with the New Jersey Board, if we went to them for some consultation and we wanted to expand the search, would they have the bandwidth to be able to do that? When I say expand, I'm talking at the national level, or is that going to be local to the state of New Jersey, this area? Like, if we want to expand the search for additional applicants, would they allow us to do that at the national level?
Well, I think they're
I would
only
think we
going to
would
get...
want a wide
Excuse me,
net.
Excuse me, may I?
Yeah, sure.
Address this question? I do believe what school boards will allow us to do is they will give us all the parameters. Any question that we have, they can supply the answers because this is what they do. They work with school boards. And I'm sure that school boards have asked them about expanding the searches and so forth and so on. So once we bring in that professional organization, and that the school boards will actually have a meeting, an open meeting, to discuss and go over some of the things that we're looking for as we move forward with the superintendent search, and the public will be welcome, and the public will be able to ask questions of the representative from school boards, so the public will definitely be involved, and we'll be able to do the same thing as well. So all of our questions will be answered instead of by just looking up for information by someone who is in the field, works with school boards, and has done many of school superintendent searches.
And there's
So I think that
no cost associated with the school board?
there is $8,000 cost.
Got it.
And we're going to have to approve that as
Got
well.
it.
But we can put that on the next meeting to have
Ray,
the
could I
approval?
just
To have the approval of that, if we decide to do it, that, the $8,000 from New Jersey School Board search. Yes, Renee?
I just think basic questions, if we just have basic questions, we have a representative at our disposal. And I'm
Yes.
sure that wouldn't cost, you know, there's no fee
Well,
attached
I
to
do
that.
believe it would come under the terminology of a school board's, of a superintendent search, and there are costs for that. Now, I don't think that we could ask our rep to come in, and she may not be even the one that would be qualified to do the school board search. I think she is, but I don't
Yeah.
want to, to
Right.
say that she
Correct.
would be the one.
But I know they were part of the
Right.
process
Yeah.
before, so.
Okay.
Can I add something too?
Yes.
The cost factor, if you think about the superintendent's job and how much that person has to do, I think it's an investment that we should make.
Absolutely.
We invest in other things.
Yep.
And we need to not worry about that, make the investment if needed.
Okay. We have, all right, we haven't opened it up yet, We haven't voted for that yet. Okay, let's finalize this. So, can I get a motion to use the following process? One, contact school boards to guide us in the search for a new superintendent. 2, develop a survey for parents and staff. Now, that survey, we can look at other surveys, but school boards may already have that, okay? But we're going to do that. We're going to develop a timeline, which will be number 4. Number 3 will be, we're going to fill the board vacancy so that the new board member can be included in the search for a new superintendent. And 4th would be develop that timeline after we have done numbers 1, 2, and 3. Because we really can't do the timeline until the other things have occurred. Yes?
I just want clarification to make sure I understand, because I don't agree to do any survey or anything until we talk to school boards and they're involved, and we're involved in their search.
I'll go back to this, Connie. Number 1, contact New Jersey school boards. That's the first thing we're going to do. When we contact them, we're going to ask for a representative to give us some dates where we can schedule a special meeting to meet with the representative from the New Jersey school boards in a public meeting to help us with our search, answer questions, give us suggestions, maybe even map out the strategies that we should use. So once that is done, okay, then we'll be able to survey the parents and staff, because we already have the process now underway.
I just want to make clear, when you say that, there's 2 things that we could be doing. We could ask the representative to come here and talk to us, or we could engage with school boards to help us with a superintendent search. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what I would agree to. I want to be clear about that.
Okay, I'll make it as clear as possible. We are going to bring New Jersey school boards in, and they are going to help us with the process. And that means we will engage. And so will the public have an opportunity to engage. So everybody in the room that night will have dialogue back and forth. Okay? Does that
Okay,
now
so
clarify it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to cost some money. That's the other thing.
Well, if we vote on this, I'm going to ask, I guess, Elaine and Janine to put first of all, we're going to have to contact to find out if there is a cost and what the cost is. And someone said 8,000, it may have gone up to 10,000. So what we can do is, after we go through these, we'll do a separate motion on how much we will allow for the school boards to come in, okay? Or just make it unlimited. But let's do it one at a time, so we have a vote on that as well.
Yeah, also, Mr. Bentley, my understanding is that right now we have 6 people on this, I guess, committee or whatever, that you would need, in this particular situation, the majority to vote, not 5 votes. It would be a majority to move forward, which would be 4.
No, you would need 5 board members to pick a superintendent.
Oh, I'm talking about the process.
The process, you need the majority of the people present and voting.
Okay, so that would be 4. We're talking about the process.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Probably, I would suggest, if you had a motion that you're putting out a lot of things, I would suggest that you
Divide the question?
the first motion would be
Okay.
with school boards.
Okay.
And then we have a second, and then have discussion and take a vote on that.
Okay.
I think that's what people want to
All right.
chime in on.
Okay, number 1, we are going to contact New Jersey school boards to set up a meeting between the board and the public to give us the proper procedure for hiring a superintendent. Do I have a motion?
No, wait a minute. I have a discussion.
Do I have a motion?
Discussion.
Well, I have to have a motion first before we discuss it.
How about the public being able to weigh in here before we decide anything?
Tried to open it, it was first and second, and then you just started, somebody else decided to talk, and then it's now going back into you making all the decisions. That was your.
Before we take the vote, I think we need to hear from the public.
Elaine seconded, and then you never took a vote. Brian decided to start talking
Again,
about.
we can't have back and forth from the audience. The concern, hold on, I know what people are saying. The concern, Ray, is There was a motion, it was seconded by Elaine, to open up, to have another public session for discussion of the superintendent search.
Okay.
We never took a vote on that. There was never any discussion on it. We went off in other areas. So I think what Connie's point is, that motion was made, it was seconded. If you're going to open up for another public session, you need to take a vote on that,
Okay.
would be my recommendation.
Motion to open the meeting to the public.
Well, that's been motioned,
It's
that's
already
been
in?
seconded, so it's a
All right, all in
vote.
favor?
Aye.
Anyone would like to address the board? Oh, cards are up here. Carol?
Carol Chilla, 5 Stafford Place. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to comment. I'm sitting back with my comrades. We're having a little reunion back there currently right now. And I had the privilege of sitting on the last superintendent search. So I'm listening to everyone's comment, and there's been a lot of amazing points. Kathy, to your point, or Ms. Gallinaro, I think it's advantageous to have a superintendent placed by September for the students and the staff. Dr. Ellis, you made the same point. I guess reflecting on the very hard work in the superintendent search, and it's April now, that timeline is very aggressive to have that happen, unfortunately. I can remember sitting, to tell you the amount of time that we spent on the superintendent search and how many meetings, it was a lot. You'd probably, if you wanted to get that in place, you'd probably be here every night until July-ish, because that's when you'd probably want to have somebody in place to start. So I just want to impart a little bit of past experience. I heard a lot of the board members say that they were unfamiliar with the process, and to say that it's tedious is an understatement, but it's the most important function that you can all do. So that was my one point about timeline. And then also just past history of doing the superintendent search. We did use New Jersey school boards. So a lot of the things that you talked about tonight, as it relates to a survey, and all, that's all valid, and we did that. So we had, I should say we agreed to it, because New Jersey school boards did all of that work for us. And we still had, again, to speak to the hours that we spent here, but they organized all of it. They did the survey, they organized, I think it was 3 community meetings at different locations in the district. We were not present, we weren't allowed to be, because we wanted impartiality, and that was kind of using the school boards. They provided that. So what they did was they took the input from the community, and that's how we got the questions for the superintendent search. So we didn't really go rogue in any way. We really used that input, and I'm sure you'll learn all this when you call them. But it was a number of years ago, so things have changed. For my career, I'm a professional recruiter, actually. So I do a lot of those different things. I have nothing to do with the superintendent search. I'm not courting business. I'm hired by another institution. But I'll say this, there are a lot of, Ray, you brought up Strauss Esme. There are so many different things that you can probably do actually in tandem with school boards. I don't think you have to be relegated to one thing. So as you're going out and getting all of this information, and as I'm standing here talking about it, that's a lot of work of what I just mentioned. So I know you have your plates full, there's a vacancy on the board, there's a lot of work and organization that needs to happen. I just wanted to at least impart a little bit of experience that I had with others behind me that we've been talking about. It is a huge task. So I just wanted to let you know that that September start probably would be very aggressive, to be realistic. And then also as an interim, as it relates to an interim, a thought around that is just maybe having somebody not associated at all with the district. Having somebody really come in. It's a turbulent time on the board, and there's been a lot of things that I've talked about. But having someone come in from the outside may really help and give you some stability that I think we all probably need, and also build a little bit more public confidence with the board. It is a very difficult job. I sat there many a nights for 3.5 years. So what you're faced with now, we've been faced with different challenges when I was on the board, not the same, but still challenges and some contention. So looking outside and selecting someone neutral just may be, I don't know, it may be a good direction to go. And anyway, good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was very informative. I wish you would have come up during the first public portion. Could have saved us a lot of discussion. Megan Watson.
Megan Watson, Monroe. Carol took most of what I wanted to say, but I'm going to echo what she said, because I was also on the superintendent search committee. It's a lot of work, guys. It takes a lot of time, and so just be reasonable about your time frame. The school boards can help you with that in terms of what a reasonable time frame is. But I would also say, don't poo-poo the idea about having an outside search company. If timing is an issue, they might actually be able to work a little bit faster with you. I really do it. I'm happy to hear that you guys are going to pull in school boards. I highly, highly encourage you to use someone outside of our school district to help you with this process. Unfortunately, with everything that went down in like the last board meeting, I think that has created some sense of inequity, unfairness, mistrust, that I think you don't want to come to this process. It is so important to pick a superintendent that everyone can trust and everyone can place value in, and that all the parents and the staff and the teachers all will value and will believe that they have the district's best interests at heart. So I really, really encourage you to use school boards and even possibly an outside agency. I have a little bit of confusion though procedurally. So you guys have chosen to do this kind of as a board rather than in committee. And the people that aren't here are people that are conflicted out. Is there a particular leader? Was that you? Who is the go-to person? So when some of you guys have questions, who are you going to? I mean, we had a contact person when I was on the board when we were doing this process. There needs to be someone who's leading the charge and who is gathering all the information and helping to be there and answer the procedural questions. So my question for you guys is, who is that person?
Yeah, the chair. Right.
Well, it's not Julie, so you're gonna be, you're the chair, you're the go-to person, you're...
As of right now,
Okay.
Vice President of the board, and for meetings regarding the new superintendent, I feel that I should be the one running the meetings.
Okay, and that's fine. I just wanted to be clear on that. And you guys have voted and decided that this is how you're going to operate on the whole superintendent search.
Well, we really haven't discussed that.
Again, I got to be a stickler. We can't have the back and forth. It's still, those
Sorry.
still apply.
Megan
So
asked the question.
I'm just going to raise that.
Megan, I'll respond to I'll elaborate on my response to your initial question.
Okay, all right, thanks. I wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to getting the survey. I'm looking forward to my input as a parent, but good luck, guys.
Okay, so just to say as we move forward, anything involving the superintendent search, all the way to the hiring of the superintendent, Vice President will be in charge of those meetings, okay? Just to let everyone know. And again, thank you for your input. Being a former search member, again, I wish you would have come up at the beginning. Megan, you've never been bashful about coming up and sharing your comments. Gabrielle Monte.
Hi again. I just have two questions. One, we still need to replace the board member that left, correct? So shouldn't we be waiting until at least we have a full board before you guys start to really intensively search? And my second question would be, if you're not going to put a timeline on the search, because it seems to be bouncing around, some people said no timeline, some people said timeline, would it be possible, rather than hiring an interim, another person and throwing them into the mix, to ask Mr. Bollendorf if he would stay on until we were able to find a new superintendent, rather than bringing another new person in for a couple months. So those are my two questions.
Okay, to respond to your first question, we've already indicated that as part of what we're going to be doing is fill the vacancy so that that person can get involved with the superintendent search. So that will be part of what we do prior to doing the other things that we have already mentioned, like school boards and so forth and so on. Question about asking Mr. Bollendorf to move forward. The board would have to have, we have to get consent from the board to even ask Mr. Bollendorf to do that. If we get consent of the board to do that, if we're in a timeline crunch, then I don't know. It would be up to Mr. Bollendorf whether or not he would want to stay with us. I don't know what his plans are. He may have already made plans, to go relax for a while. He certainly has earned that. So it's two good points you brought up, and I believe we're going to be doing both of those if necessary, if the timeline supersedes the opening of school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that Josette Zargo? Josette?
So,
I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm new at this.
It's Scrub. Sorry. Okay. First, I want to start out with a question. Is the public involved at all with picking board members? So Ms. Halpin, we all know, left. She stepped down. She made very public why she stepped down, so we all know why. So my question is, who would be involved with choosing? Would we also have an input? The second thing is, I'm going to address the elephant in the room that only one person addressed this evening. There is, to say the least, been a lot of turbulence. And of course, I'm referring to the last meeting and Julie's behavior during that meeting. So with all due respect, our confidence as a whole has been shaken, and that's why we're asking if we could speak again, and you're probably sensing our uncertainty and our anxiety about all of this, and that is why. So, of course, we're all concerned who is going to replace and how that person is going to be replaced and who is going to be involved with that process, and also with Julie's fate as well. A board, obviously, the Board of Education, especially the president, especially the superintendent, is not to present partisan views. They should be nonpartisan. Julie has clearly proven that she is not. So that is part of the reason why we are, reasonably anxious about where we're going from here. Before you all select a superintendent, you need to have a solid group. And right now, you're missing one person, and one person's a little shaky, to say the least. So I think the focus needs to be, as others have stated, replacing Ms. Halpin. And I'd like to know how we're going to do that and who's going to be involved in that process. And then number two, we've got the elephant in the room, unfortunately, Julie, and her behavior. So those are the two things that I wanted to bring up. Thank you.
First of all, we have already advertised, and I believe we have a couple of applicants who have sent in a letter requesting at least to be interviewed for the Board of Education opening. In the past, what we have done is, at the time, it was during COVID, so we had a teleconference with the person and the full board, each person who sent an application with the full board. We asked them the same questions and listened to their responses. And then the Board of Education at the end made the selection of the replacement. And that's the process that we will use this time. However, it might be in public or in a closed session, because we don't have the COVID restrictions that we had when we replaced the last board member. So that's the answer to your first question. The second question, from my understanding, Mrs. Gozempel will, or Ms. Gozempel will not be chairing the meetings where we have anything to do with the superintendent search. She has decided to recluse herself from those type of situations.
Mr. Denova, I'd just like to mention, I was the last person appointed to the board, and it was in public session, and it was not on, TV or whatever. It was right here. It was in public session.
I believe the process.
The interviews were not.
I was interviewed in a public session. There was public people sitting in there listening to my interview and the other people.
Yeah, that's how we've done it before, where we have the interviews of the candidates, that is in public. The discussion of the candidates, of who's the best and so forth, that is done in executive session.
Yeah.
And then the vote of who the selection is out in public.
Correct.
If there's multiple candidates for the interview, sometimes I ask that the candidates not be in the room when the other candidates being interviewed, so they don't get an advantage because they hear the questions, and we haven't had any problem with that. But I think that's been the process where the interviews are in public, discussion in private, and then vote in public.
Yeah, that's how it was.
The last time that we did that, anybody could tune in to that webinar that we had when we had the COVID problem. It was open to the public. Peter? I'm sorry, I can't read the full.
Double.
Thank you.
Hi, board. My name is Peter Double III, and I live on 216 Selena Road. And my wife came with me tonight, and we came out tonight first as parents, of course, right? And we came out second as students, right? We wanted to learn how the process worked. We wanted to see what goes on and be able to understand it for ourselves. Obviously, we know what happened at the last meeting, and obviously we were appalled. But we came out tonight to find out the process of going forward. My wife will tell you, she's here with me, that I'm cheap. So being cheap, I would say save money where we can, but this is a place where we can't save money. We need to bring an outside company in. We understand that things cost money. $8,000, $10,000. If we divide it over the years that this person will be serving our children, it's a small cost that we can ask for. I mean, I know we probably spend money other places that we could cut back and make this very possible. We have a son here in school. We have another one not far behind, and my wife's expecting 2 more. So we're going to have 4 students going through the school system. Thank you. Call my wife out on that, friend. So what happens in this process is so important to us. And leaving here tonight, we really want to be able to face our children knowing that the process was fair, bipartisan, and that we can face our children knowing that we came out to fight for them. So I honestly ask this board to truly take that in consideration. Let's make it a fair process. Let's make it bipartisan. Let's just do it for the kids. Let's just make this about them. Let's not make this about politics. We all know that everything has to be politics, but this doesn't have to be politics. This has to be about them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mary Bem?
So somebody just came up and asked pretty much the same question. I just made a statement earlier, and you tiptoed around it and didn't answer the question. So after the 22nd, and knowing what Julie did and how she addressed, and her email that was put out there that had a whole lot of unethical things inside of it, that led us to believe that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes that maybe not everybody here knew, but in her email, it certainly was spelled out how she was trying to cherry pick people to be on the board so they could vote the way she wanted. It's spelled out in the email. I mean, we've all looked at it. It's public knowledge. How are you going to go forward with Julie? People can file ethics complaints at the state level. How long does that take to kick in place? And maybe we should be hiring 2 people to sit on the board and ask Julie to resign. Because at this point, she is not somebody that anybody feels like they can trust. And before I didn't feel like that. I'm going to tell you right now, I've come to many board meetings And I did have respect, I do have respect for everything you guys are doing. I truly do. I know it takes a lot of time. Friends of mine have been doing this, and it's a thankless job. I mean, it is the one position in township that you get appointed or you get voted in and you don't even get a stipend for being here. I understand that. But when she crossed those lines, not just, and everybody's like, oh, you probably took offense to the red hats. I didn't. I mean, it was really offensive, but I could have cared less. What bothered me more was that she's cherry-picking people to pick who she wants as superintendent. And I feel really bad for the person that was named and that she's talking about, because I don't know her other than sitting on the board, and she's probably very well qualified. But at this point, especially everybody on social media, it's tainted. And if Julie stays on this board, how are we not to think that any other emails that have been sent back and forth, she's talked to someone else and has any other, we don't know that. I mean, you can say that she hasn't, but we don't know. So, you know, maybe you can't tell me what your intentions are, but it would be nice to see that somebody up there would say, we are going to ask her to resign, or at least ask her not to even be the Board of Ed president, or even, I mean, what did they do to other people when she became president? She pulled them off of committees, and you just sit there and look pretty until you decide you don't want to run again. That's not the way it is. So how are we going to handle it? We know she's bullied another person to step down before. I mean, we tell our children not to bully. We have somebody who's hired to be ethical and fair to all children, but yet we have a school board president who's not. And it was in her email. When you put something in writing, you can't go back and take that away. So I'm asking, what is the board going to do? I asked earlier, but I didn't ask it as a question. Somebody else came up and asked the question, and you didn't answer it. So I think we, as a public and the people in TV land, should also know what you plan on doing. And the next week is the actual meeting, so maybe it's going to happen there. I don't know. Thank you.
My understanding is that she is going to recluse herself from the participation in any of the superintendent search items. At the present time, the vice president will preside over all meetings involving that. And for the rest of it, I'm going to ask Mr. Bentley to give us a legal interpretation of what the board can do.
Well, I'm going to tell the board what they can't do. And what they can't do is the board can't take a vote to remove one of its members. I'm not making any comments one way or another about the allegations, but the board does not have the authority to remove one of its members. What the board decides to do with one of its members is going to be up to the board, but that is off the table, so to speak.
Okay. Jenny Murphy.
Thank you, Jenny Murphy.
Before you, one exception is they don't attend, I think, 3 straight meetings in a row. That is the exception. I'm sorry.
Well,
but
they have to be voted off by the board.
that'd be voted off. I think that's they're subject to be removed if they don't attend the meetings, right? Sorry.
Hey, no problem. Jenny Murphy, 53 Gold Parkway. I think that question's come up a lot, and you've addressed it briefly, but the board doesn't have jurisdiction to discipline their members. Basically, that's the thing that you need to know. So you guys really can't do anything. But interestingly enough, I believe the district is South Brunswick, but you may want to check that out. There are a lot of items that the board doesn't have jurisdiction over. Some things the state controls. For example, like the mask mandate and all the controversy about that. You didn't have the decision not to follow the state law at that time. But you could file a resolution to our local elected officials to say, we as a board want to submit this resolution and let you know, elected officials who have jurisdiction over this issue, that this is how we feel. Well, South Brunswick, I believe, just passed a resolution to ask the ethics committee to step into a situation just like you guys are facing right now. Say, look, we don't want to touch this as individual board members. It's distracting us in what we do. But we want you, Ethics Commission, to do an investigation and determine if there was wrongdoing done. So it sort of takes it out of that. Doesn't mean they're going to take it. It's not an ethics complaint. It means you guys, the remaining board members, could put forth the resolution to the commission to say, you know, can you look at this and let it be whatever the evidence is. So I think that is an exception. and I'm pretty sure it was South Brunswick. I didn't come up here to talk about that, but I hear, even in other meetings I was listening to where you guys are getting yelled at, you have no jurisdiction to even address what the people up here are talking about. So I thought it was important to restate that that's pretty much where we stand with that. So 3 things that I took away from the comments. One is cost. You guys seem to all agree. If you add up all the hoagies trays that you guys have in the back over the whole year or 2, I'm pretty sure you're going to get that. I'm making a joke of it, but that $8,000 or whatever it turns out to be will be your best investment. I mean, your budget was tentatively approved, so if it becomes an issue, some of you guys can take another look at that budget and cut $10,000 somewhere, and there's your money, right? So the cost is minimal. I have a question for Mr. Betley. We posted this job. I believe the job posting for superintendent went out in February, if that's correct, February 2022. And it closed in March sometime. So there's all this talk about, calling school boards and having an agency and the cost, but legally, what would you do with the current post and applicant pool? Is that something that you can withdraw the post? If you're going to go to a national search, right, and hire a company to do it, I suspect that you're thinking you're going to have more candidates apply. And these are all assumptions. I'm just listening to what you're saying. So is it it's like a school district position where you can post, not hire, and repost? The other thing is, other point I'd like to make and a recommendation is, be guided if you hire an agency like school boards by the timeline. The first thing they're going to tell you is you don't hire a superintendent in 60 days. The second thing they're going to tell you when they come in, if you hire them, is you're never going to do it by September 1st. But I'm not in that. I've been around searches throughout the state. In my role as a state board bed member, I'm telling you that's probably what you're going to find out. That's why you're hiring them. Let them guide you through that timeline. Mr. Betley, do you have an answer for the, just on the posting? Like, I'm just curious myself how the original post works, and if you wanted to get an extension to do, hire an agency, do you just leave that out there? Do you suspend it? Do you repost it? What will the board do?
Ms. Murphy, I really don't have an answer to that question. I would assume that if, and again, it's going to be up to the board to decide. I don't get involved in posting of superintendents. I guide them in terms of legal issues. But I would assume that if you're going to put a pause, if we're going to pivot, we're going to have other things going on, that the period of time for a posting may have to be looked into. That's what I would assume would have to happen. I don't know exactly how it would be, but I think it's if the majority of the board wants to extend the post or rescind it and do a repost, it's going to be up to them to make that decision. I think they have the flexibility and discretion to do whatever they want to do and go down that whatever road you want to go down to.
Ray, what's your last name, sir?
Trost.
Trost.
Ray Trost, Whitman Square. So I wanted to discuss something that I just don't hear a lot in these meetings. And first I'm going to walk through something. So, when I bought a house here, my wife, everyone here, we kind of made an unofficial agreement, or maybe even an official agreement with the school to help us raise our kids. Our job is to prepare our kids to become adults, right? That's our job. So I think what we should look for in a superintendent is someone who has a track record of maybe raising test scores, maybe getting teachers to work a little bit harder to help students, someone that is focused on achievement. I think one of the reasons why everything has gotten so hot in here is because government always metastasizes and it gets bigger and it starts moving into areas that cause a lot of distractions. Like we saw all the COVID distractions, the diversity, the equity, inclusion, all the transgender stuff. All that stuff is first world problems that are not the primary function of education, which is achievement and preparing young people to be adults. I look at this sign here and it says no place for hate, and that's a great sign. I can teach my kids that. I can't teach my kids trigonometry. I can't teach them biology. I can't teach them chemistry. So just to tie that all together, I feel like if I'm in your chair, what I'm looking for is someone who is focusing on achievement and helping kids become adults by getting good test scores and achieving as much as they can so that they can live better lives in adulthood, and leave the morality and all the other stuff to parents, because I think we're pretty good at that.
Thank you. Okay, this will be the last person to participate, I think, everyone. You got another yellow card?
No.
Or you just, okay.
I have my questions.
Okay. Barbara, would you like to come up?
Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Anderson. I live in Whitman Square, and I am a Red Hat, proud to say it. So I just want to know two questions. Is Julie going to be involved in the process of the next board member? And the second question is, can you ask her to step down as president? Because we would like her to step down. Thank you.
The answer to your first question is no. The answer to your second question is up to Julie. As you heard from our solicitor, we cannot do anything legally to ask her to leave the board.
To leave the board, but what about to step down as
We we've already discussed the fact that she will recluse herself from anything involving the new superintendent. The vice president will chair the meetings and discuss, be at the podium here for anything involving the search for our superintendent.
Ray, I believe the question, though, was whether the board president is going to be involved in picking the next board member. Correct.
I answered that first. I said no.
I think your question was about the superintendent search. Your answer was...
Oh, for the next board member?
The next board member, I think, was
I'm sorry. The next board member, she's a member of the board. She has a vote.
No, not a good answer. Not a good answer. From her email, that's not a good response.
There's no back and forth.
There's no back and forth on that.
There's no back and forth with other people.
Yeah, I understand. This is my first meeting in a long time, so I've allowed it to be a little lenient because I know the public has a lot of questions that they want to ask. And I've been a little bit lenient, and if I continue to do this job, then I'm going to have to adhere to the policy that is set forth by the Board of Education with the 5-minute limit and no back and forth dialogue. But I know this is a very sensitive time, and you have a lot of questions, so as you noticed, I reopened it. I allowed you to come up as much as you wanted to, but moving forward, if I am going to be in this chair, I will have to follow the protocol of running meetings. Okay?
Mr. Bentley, I understood your opinion that you cannot remove someone from the board. What's the opinion where there's a sitting president, and does board members have any options there in terms of making a request for them to step down as president, or does that fall into the same thing that we have no right to do any of that?
A board can ask someone to do anything they want. I think the question is, can the board, by a vote, remove a board member? And I said, no, they can't.
Right.
You can ask Julie, ask any other member to do anything they want. They can just simply say yes or no.
Okay, so in other words, if you asked her not to be president, that's all you could do is just ask her. There's nothing else.
Correct.
Okay. Since we're getting to the close of the meeting, are we able to go into executive? You had said if we had a question, we could go into executive?
Again, you can go in executive anytime you want.
Yeah.
I think the purpose was to try to have this discussion out in public,
Right,
so I'm not sure what the reason for executive session would be.
Now that public is over, unless there's somebody else that has a question, I have a question that I would like to make a motion to go into executive.
You have to close to the public first.
We have a motion to go into executive For what purpose?
For what purpose?
Okay.
For what purpose? I wanted to discuss in executive about the issue that was brought up about a resolution. I wanted to get more clarification on that.
Okay.
A resolution about what?
Okay, apparently in New Brunswick, there was a resolution.
That's not an executive session
That's not
discussion.
executive
Is it a
session.
legal question?
I was just going to ask, are we able to do a resolution?
Again, I have no knowledge of whatever happened in South Brunswick. Based upon the comments, if the resolution is to have the School Ethics Commission come in and do an investigation, I seriously doubt whether that's a viable option. Again, without looking at anything else on the surface of that, I don't think that's a viable option.
You can try. I didn't say come in to do an investigation. I know you can't talk from that. That's not what I said. They do an investigation. They take it or don't take it.
Okay, we have first of all, we have to make a motion to close the meeting to the public. I have a motion on that.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Oh, we don't have, I only wanted to go in closed session, but I guess you answered it in public, so that's fine.
Okay.
I thought it had to be in closed session.
I mean, look, it doesn't. If the board wants to direct me to look into what happened in South Brunswick, I would do that. I just need direction from the entire board. If that's the will of the board right now. I just, quite frankly, based upon what I've heard, I'm not sure what that's said. That's something that would be working.
So Connie, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for you to look into that case and see if it has anything about that case that would have some connection to what happened here in our district with the board president.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis? Mrs. Gallinaro?
Yes.
Mr. Denuvi?
Yes.
5 votes.
Motion carries.
And if I may, I think we're going to be adjourning, but if I can just ask Ms. Murphy to wait around, I can get some information from her about that. Ms. Murphy, if you can, after the meeting, could you just stick around, I can get some information, give them the direction from the board? That'd be great.
Okay, before we close, I would like a motion to at least start the process to have, I guess, Janine contact New Jersey school boards.
I can get a proposal from them.
All right, to get a proposal from New Jersey school boards to help us with our superintendent search. Wait, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clancy?
Yes.
Dr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mrs. Gallinaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Denuvi?
Yes. Okay, the other items that we discussed will fall into place once we have school boards and once we have the initial meeting. The other items we discussed about, the survey and anything else related to the superintendent's search will fall into place. So I don't think we have to vote on them at this time. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned.